At my sister's wedding, Dad said, "Don't ruin her day," so I walked in with the judge. Madison Clarke hadn't planned to attend her sister's wedding, not after being cut out of the planning, not after being told repeatedly that she was too dramatic, too complicated, and too much of a distraction from Blair's perfect day. But when her father pulled her aside and said, "Don't ruin this for your sister, just stay out of the way," something in her snapped, because what her family didn't know was that Madison had something they never expected, something she'd been working on for months, and she wasn't going to be silent anymore. So when the ceremony began, Madison didn't take a seat. She walked in with the judge, and what happened next wasn't in the program. Because some truths deserve to be spoken, even if they're wearing heels and holding court documents. Subscribe to the channel to follow Madison's boldest move yet. What she brought to her sister's wedding wasn't a gift. It was justice. And this story is just getting started. Chapter 1. The Invitation. Madison Clarke stood at her mailbox, the crisp October breeze tousling her chestnut hair as fallen leaves skittered across the driveway of her modest Brookline apartment. The cream-colored envelope sat heavy in her hands, the embossed golden script catching the late afternoon sunlight. She didn't need to open it to know what it contained: an invitation to her sister's wedding. A wedding she'd heard about through her mother's reluctant phone call 3 months ago. "Of course Blair wants you there," her mother had said, voice pitched with that familiar strain that appeared whenever Madison was discussed. "She's just concerned about everything going smoothly." Madison's fingers traced the edge of the envelope as she climbed the stairs to her apartment. Inside, the space was warm and lived in. Law books stacked on the coffee table, case files spread across her small dining table, and framed diplomas hanging on the wall beside a single family photo from a decade ago, before everything changed. The invitation was exactly as she expected. Elegant script, a photo of Blair and James, tall, Kennedy handsome, and from the right kind of Boston family, both gleaming with picture-perfect smiles. Madison's stomach twisted as she read the details. 3 weeks away. The 4 seasons. Of course. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. "Got the invitation? Blair's worried you might not come. It would mean a lot to her. To all of us." Madison set the phone down without answering. Her father, Richard Clarke, successful corporate attorney and pillar of Boston society, always knew exactly how to twist the knife. The suggestion that she wouldn't show up for her sister, as if Madison was the one who had been distant all these years. She walked to the window overlooking the street below, where normal families went about their Saturday afternoon routines. How many of them were hiding fractures beneath their perfect facades? How many carried secrets that would shatter their carefully constructed images? Madison knew what her family wanted: for her to show up quietly, smile for photos, and leave before she could embarrass them, before she could remind anyone of what happened 5 years ago when she'd challenged her father's firm about a case involving environmental negligence by one of their biggest clients. The case that had fractured her relationship with her family, but had ultimately set her on a path that led her to where she was now. Her phone buzzed again. Her friend Tara this time. "Did you get it? Are you going to go?" Madison texted back. "Just got it. Haven't decided. Working on something bigger anyway." She glanced at the pile of documents on her desk, the culmination of months of careful investigation. Documents that could change everything. 3 days later, Madison's phone rang. Blair's name flashed on the screen. With a deep breath, Madison answered. "Hey, sis," she said, trying to inject warmth into her voice. "Madison?" Blair's voice was tight. "Mom said you haven't RSVP'd yet." "I just got the invitation a few days ago." "It's a simple yes or no. James's family is very particular about the guest list, and I need to give the final numbers to the venue." Madison swallowed her first response. "I'm planning to come, Blair." A pause. "Oh." Blair sounded genuinely surprised. "Well, that's good. Just, you know how important this is to me, right? Everything has to be perfect." "I understand." "No drama, Madison, please. I've worked so hard on this wedding, and you know how Dad gets when you two start arguing." Madison's grip tightened on her phone. "I'm not planning to cause drama, Blair." "Good. Because this is my day. I just need you to blend in. Can you do that? For me?" Blair's voice softened slightly. "Maybe we can get lunch after the honeymoon. Catch up properly." The familiar promise of a relationship that never materialized. Madison had heard it before. "Sure, Blair. That sounds nice." After hanging up, Madison turned back to her desk and the documents spread across it. Reports, financial records, testimony transcripts, evidence of what her father's firm, and specifically her father, had been hiding for years. The case she'd been building meticulously since leaving the prestigious corporate law track for a smaller firm specializing in accountability and justice. 2 weeks before the wedding, Madison sat in Judge Eleanor Winter's chambers, hands clasped tightly in her lap as the older woman reviewed the final documents. "This is thorough work, Miss Clarke," Judge Winters said, looking up over her reading glasses. "And I understand the personal complications involved." Madison nodded. "The timing is unfortunate." "The timing is what it is," Judge Winters replied, closing the folder. "Justice doesn't wait for convenient moments. But I have to ask, are you prepared for the consequences? This will change your family forever." Madison thought of all the family dinners where her voice had been silenced, the career guidance that had pushed her toward supporting her father's legacy rather than finding her own path, the constant reminders that she was too emotional, too dramatic, too much. "My family changed a long time ago, Your Honor. This is just bringing the truth to light." The day before the wedding, Madison's father called her. "Madison, I'm glad I caught you." Richard's voice carried the authoritative tone he'd used in her childhood. "I wanted to talk to you before tomorrow." "Yes, Dad?" "I know we've had our differences, but tomorrow's about Blair. She's worked hard for this day, for this match with James. The Whittingtons are an important family, and this wedding is more than just a celebration. It's an alliance." Of course it was. Everything in her father's world was strategic. "I'm aware of what the wedding means, Dad." "Good. Then you understand why I'm asking you to just keep things simple tomorrow. Don't bring up work, don't mention the Hartwell case, or any of your causes. Just be Blair's sister for one day. Can you do that?" Madison closed her eyes, letting the familiar disappointment wash over her. "Is that all you called to say?" A heavy sigh on the other end. "Madison, please, don't make this difficult." "I never do, Dad. That's just how you see me." "Madison," his voice hardened, "don't ruin this for your sister. Just stay out of the way." Something in Madison snapped at those words, the final confirmation that in her father's eyes, her very presence was a potential problem. "I'll see you tomorrow, Dad," she said quietly, and ended the call. That night, Madison laid out her outfit for the wedding. Not the soft pink dress her mother had suggested would complement the bridal party without drawing attention, but a tailored navy suit that made her feel powerful. Beside it, she placed her briefcase with the court documents. Tomorrow, everything would change. If you're invested in Madison's journey and wondering what happens when she steps into that wedding with evidence that could shatter her family's perfect facade, don't miss the next chapter. This story of courage, truth, and family reckoning continues, so make sure you're subscribed to this channel to catch Chapter 2 when it drops next week. Hit that subscribe button now to follow Madison as she walks into her sister's wedding with the judge. Chapter 2. The Confrontation. The Four Seasons Boston gleamed in the morning light, its classic facade and perfectly manicured entrance ready for what the society pages would undoubtedly call the wedding of the season. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway, disgorging guests in designer attire, all air kisses and practiced smiles. Madison sat in her car across the street, watching. Her navy suit felt like armor, her briefcase like a shield. Inside it were the documents that would change everything, evidence of her father's involvement in covering up environmental contamination that had affected hundreds of families in a small Massachusetts town, evidence that Richard Clarke had personally buried test results showing dangerous levels of chemicals in the water supply while representing the corporation responsible. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Where are you? The family photos start in 20 minutes. Madison checked her watch, then picked up her phone to make a call. "I'm on my way," she told Judge Winters. "Are you sure about this?" "Miss Clarke." The judge's voice was steady. "I've reviewed everything. The evidence is solid. The question is, are you sure?" Madison watched as her father emerged from a black town car, straightening his tuxedo before offering his arm to her mother. They looked perfect, Boston aristocracy incarnate. "I'm sure," Madison said firmly. "I'll meet you at the side entrance in 10 minutes. As Madison crossed the street toward the hotel, memories flooded back. Her father teaching her to ride a bike, cheering at her law school graduation, his proud smile when she passed the bar. Then later memories, his cold fury when she questioned the ethics of one of his cases, his dismissal when she brought evidence of wrongdoing, his ultimatum when she chose to leave his firm. "You're either with this family or against it, Madison." She had chosen neither. She had chosen justice. Inside the hotel, the wedding preparations were in full swing. Madison slipped past the main reception area, heading toward the bridal suite where she knew her sister would be getting ready. She needed to see Blair first, to try one last time. The suite was a flurry of activity, bridesmaids in matching robes, hairstylists and makeup artists buzzing around, champagne flowing freely. In the center of it all stood Blair, already in her gown, a custom Vera Wang creation that highlighted her delicate frame and classic beauty. Their eyes met in the mirror, and for a moment, Madison saw a flicker of genuine happiness in her sister's face, before it was quickly replaced by apprehension. "Madison," Blair said, turning, "you're late, and that's not the dress Mom picked out." "I need to talk to you," Madison said quietly, privately. Blair's perfectly made-up face tightened. "Now? Seriously? I'm getting married in an hour." "It's important, Blair, please." Something in Madison's tone must have registered because Blair sighed and gestured toward a small adjoining room. Once inside with the door closed, Madison spoke quickly. "Blair, there's something you need to know before this goes any further. About Dad, about his firm, about money that's been hidden." "Stop," Blair interrupted, holding up a manicured hand. "Just stop. I don't want to hear about whatever crusade you're on now." "This isn't a crusade. It's the truth. The Hartwell case. The case you've been obsessed with for years?" Blair's voice rose slightly. "The one that made you turn against our family?" "Madison, I don't care. It's my wedding day." Madison tried again. "People were hurt, Blair. They died. And Dad knew." "Enough," Blair's eyes flashed. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but I won't let you ruin this day with your issues with Dad. James' family is out there. Everyone who matters in Boston is out there. That's all you care about, isn't it? How things look." Blair's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly. "Not all of us have the luxury of throwing away everything for principles, Madison. Some of us have to live in the real world." "This is the real world," Madison countered. "Those families in Hartwell living with cancer and birth defects because Dad helped his client hide evidence of contamination, that's the real world." A knock at the door interrupted them. Their mother's voice called out, "Blair, the photographer is ready for family photos." Blair straightened, instantly recomposing her features. "I have to go. If you can't be supportive today, then maybe you should leave. Blair, please. No, Madison, for once, this isn't about you or your causes or your need to always be right. Today is about me and James. So either put on a smile and act like part of this family or go. Madison stood there, briefcase in hand, as her sister swept out of the room. Through the door, she heard her mother's exclamations over how beautiful Blair looked, her father's proud comments. The perfect family moment, built on a foundation of lies. Her phone vibrated. A text from Judge Winters. "I'm here. Side entrance as planned." Madison took a deep breath and made her decision. The ceremony was set to take place in the hotel's grand ballroom, transformed into an elegant chapel with floating orchids, crystal chandeliers, and enough flowers to fill a garden. Guests were being seated as Madison made her way to the side entrance, where Judge Winters waited, dignified in her formal robes. "Are you ready?" the judge asked. Madison nodded. They need to hear the truth. All of them. As they waited for the ceremony to begin, Madison caught glimpses of the guests, her father's law partners, corporate executives, politicians, all the power players of Boston, the very people who had enabled the cover-up she was about to expose. The wedding music began. Through the partially open doors, Madison watched as the bridal party proceeded down the aisle. Her mother, seated in the front row, kept glancing back anxiously, looking for Madison, no doubt, wondering why she wasn't in her assigned seat. Then came the moment. The music swelled for the bride's entrance. Blair appeared at the doors on her father's arm, radiant in white. Richard Clarke looked every inch the proud father, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his tuxedo immaculate. As they started down the aisle, Madison nodded to Judge Winters. Together, they stepped into view from the side entrance. A murmur rippled through the assembled guests. Madison's mother half rose from her seat, her face a mask of confusion and alarm. Blair and their father halted mid-step. "Madison," her father hissed, his public smile frozen in place. "What are you doing?" Madison stepped forward, Judge Winters beside her. "Something I should have done a long time ago." Blair's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. "Madison, please, not now." But Madison's focus was on her father, whose expression had shifted from confusion to dawning horror as he recognized Judge Winters. "Richard Clarke," the judge spoke clearly, her voice carrying through the suddenly silent ballroom. "I have here a court order compelling you to appear before the Massachusetts Superior Court to answer charges of evidence suppression, witness tampering, and criminal negligence in the case of Hartwell versus Northeast Chemical Corporation." Gasps echoed through the room. James's parents, the distinguished Whittingtons, looked aghast. Camera phones were already being raised. Richard's face hardened as he looked at Madison. "You would do this here, now?" "You gave me no choice," Madison replied, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "I tried to talk to you privately. I tried for years." "Officers," Judge Winters nodded toward the back of the room where 2 court officers had entered. "Please ensure Mr. Clarke understands the seriousness of these charges." As the officers approached, Blair's composure finally broke. "How could you?" she demanded, tears threatening to ruin her perfect makeup. "This is my wedding." Madison met her sister's gaze steadily. "Some things are more important than a perfect wedding, Blair, like justice for the 37 people who died because of what Dad helped cover up." The guests were in an uproar now, whispers and exclamations building to a chaotic crescendo. James had moved to Blair's side, his face a mixture of confusion and concern. Madison's mother stood frozen, her hand pressed to her mouth. Richard Clarke, always the consummate lawyer, quickly regained his composure. "This is a misunderstanding," he announced loudly. "An unfortunate timing coincidence. Please, everyone, remain calm. Blair, sweetheart, the ceremony should continue." "Actually," Judge Winters interrupted, "given the nature of the charges and your awareness of this investigation for some time, the court has also authorized a freeze of your assets pending resolution of this case." It was as if all the air had been sucked from the room. Madison watched as the reality settled over her family. Not just the public embarrassment, but the financial implications. The carefully constructed world her father had built was crumbling before their eyes. Richard turned to Madison, his voice low and dangerous. "You've destroyed this family." Madison held her ground. "No, Dad, you did that. When you chose profit over people's lives, when you taught us that appearances matter more than truth." As the court officers escorted her father toward the exit, Madison caught Blair's eye one last time. Behind the anger and humiliation, Madison thought she saw something else, a flicker of uncertainty, perhaps even the first glimmer of understanding. The perfect wedding was in shambles, but the truth was finally coming to light. Chapter 3. The Reconciliation. 6 months had passed since the wedding that never was. Boston's winter had given way to spring, cherry blossoms lining Commonwealth Avenue as Madison walked from the courthouse to her new office space in Back Bay. The past half year had transformed her life in ways she could never have anticipated. After her father's arrest at Blair's wedding, the case had blown open wide. More evidence had emerged, other whistleblowers had come forward, and the full extent of Northeast Chemicals' contamination and Richard Clarke's involvement in concealing it had been exposed. Madison's phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. "Settlement conference confirmed for Thursday. All parties will attend." It had taken months of legal battles, but the end was finally in sight. A landmark settlement for the Hartwell victims, accountability for those responsible, and the commitment to environmental remediation that would help heal some of the damage done. Madison paused outside a coffee shop, contemplating whether to go in, when she heard a familiar voice. "Thought I might find you here." Blair stood there, looking different than Madison remembered. Gone was the perfectly coiffed socialite. This Blair wore minimal makeup, simple jeans, and a light sweater. Her engagement ring was noticeably absent. "Blair," Madison said, surprised. They hadn't spoken since a tense phone call 3 months ago. "I didn't know you were back in Boston." "Got back last week. Can we talk? Maybe inside?" They found a quiet corner table. Blair stirred her latte absently before looking up. "I owe you an apology. A big one." Madison set down her cup. "You don't have to—" "Yes, I do," Blair interrupted. "I was awful to you for years. I believed Dad when he said you were being dramatic, that you were jealous of his attention, that you were trying to undermine his success because you couldn't measure up." She shook her head. "I was so blind." Madison studied her sister's face, seeing genuine remorse there. "It wasn't just you, Blair. Dad was very convincing. He built his career on making people believe him." "But I'm your sister. I should have listened." Blair's voice caught. "When everything came out in the trial, those families' testimonies, I kept thinking about how long you'd been trying to tell us the truth." The trial had been front-page news for weeks. Richard Clarke, the respected attorney, revealed as the architect of a cover-up that had devastating consequences. The evidence Madison had gathered had been irrefutable. "What happened with James?" Madison asked gently. Blair gave a small, sad smile. "He stuck around through the arrest and initial scandal, left when the Whittington Family Trust pulled their financial support. Turns out he loved the idea of marrying into the Clarke fortune more than he loved me." "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Blair said with surprising firmness. "It was a wake-up call I needed. After James left, I went to visit Hartwell. I wanted to see for myself." Madison was stunned. "You went to Hartwell?" Blair nodded. "I met some of the families, saw the memorial for those who died. It was—" She trailed off, unable to find adequate words. How did Dad live with himself, knowing what he'd done? "The same way many powerful people do," Madison replied, "by convincing himself it was necessary, by focusing on the benefits, the money, the status, the power, and distancing himself from the costs." They sat in silence for a moment, two daughters grappling with the legacy of their father's choices. "Have you heard from Mom?" Madison finally asked. "She's selling the house. Most of Dad's assets are gone. Legal fees, restitution payments. She's moving to a condo in Florida next month. Wants to start fresh." Their mother had stood by Richard through the arrest and initial hearings, but had filed for divorce once the full extent of his actions became clear. Another casualty of the truth. "And you?" Madison asked. "What's next for you?" Blair straightened in her seat. "That's partly why I wanted to see you. I've been accepted to a master's program in environmental policy at BU, starting this fall." Madison couldn't hide her surprise. "Environmental policy? That's unexpected." "I know," Blair said with a small laugh, "but after everything that happened, I started reading about environmental justice, about communities like Hartwell all over the country. It felt like maybe a way to make some kind of amends." For the first time in years, Madison felt a genuine connection with her sister. "Blair, that's amazing." "There's something else," Blair continued, looking nervous now. "The settlement money from Dad's firm, my portion of it, I want to donate it to your new legal foundation for environmental justice cases." Madison was speechless. The foundation had been her dream, a way to help other communities like Hartwell fight against corporate polluters. She had been piecing together funding, but Blair's contribution would make a significant difference. "You don't have to do that," Madison said finally. "I want to," Blair insisted. "It feels right. Using Dad's money to help the kind of people he hurt." She reached across the table to take Madison's hand. "And maybe I could help somehow, once I finish my degree. You're the legal expert, but policy work could complement that." Madison felt tears threatening. After years of estrangement and conflict, the idea of working alongside her sister toward a common purpose was overwhelming. "I'd like that," she said softly. As they left the coffee shop, walking together down Newberry Street in the spring sunshine, Madison reflected on the unexpected journey of the past 6 months. Her father was awaiting sentencing, her family fortune was largely gone, and the perfect Clarke family image had been shattered beyond repair. Yet somehow, from those broken pieces, something authentic was emerging. Her relationship with Blair, now based on truth rather than appearances, her work, making a tangible difference in people's lives, her foundation, poised to help other communities fight for justice. Later that afternoon, Madison stood at the podium in a community center in Hartwell. Before her sat families who had lost loved ones to cancer, parents of children born with defects, residents still dealing with the aftermath of corporate negligence. "The settlement we've secured can never replace what you've lost," she told them, her voice steady. "No amount of money can do that, but it represents accountability. It represents recognition of the wrong that was done to you. And the remediation fund will ensure that future generations in Hartwell will have clean water, clean soil, clean air." From the back of the room, Madison spotted Blair slipping in, standing quietly against the wall. Their eyes met briefly, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. "This case has shown me that speaking truth, no matter how difficult, no matter the personal cost, is always the right choice," Madison continued. "Each of you who came forward, who shared your stories, who refused to be silenced, you made this possible." After the meeting, as Madison and Blair walked to the car, a woman approached them. Ellen Reeves, who had lost her husband and son to rare cancers linked to the contamination. "You're Richard Clarke's daughters," she said, her gaze direct. Madison tensed, prepared for anger, for blame. Yes, we are. Ellen studied them both for a long moment. Must have been hard, going against your own father like that. Not as hard as what you've been through, Madison replied honestly. Ellen nodded slowly. Well, I just wanted to say thank you, both of you, for choosing to stand with us instead of him. As the woman walked away, Blair turned to Madison, tears in her eyes. I wish I'd had your courage years ago. It's not about the past now, Madison said, putting an arm around her sister's shoulders. It's about what we do next. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, Madison Clarke's life looked nothing like she had imagined. The family she had known was gone, but in its place was something perhaps more valuable, a chance to rebuild relationships based on truth, a purpose that gave meaning to her legal career, and the knowledge that when faced with the hardest choice of her life, she had done the right thing. As the sisters drove back toward Boston in the fading light, Madison realized that she had finally found her voice, and with it, a new kind of freedom. If this story of courage, family redemption, and fighting for what is right resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel now. Your subscription helps us continue sharing powerful stories like Madison's, stories that remind us all that it's never too late to stand up for truth, even when it comes at a personal cost. Hit that subscribe button to join our community of storytellers and truth seekers, and to make sure you never miss our upcoming real-life dramas. Thank you for being part of this journey.